The notification lit up my phone at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. A video message from Uncle Gerald. I almost didn't open it. I was curled up on my second-hand couch in my cramped Seattle apartment, eating leftover pasta from 3 days ago, trying to make my grocery budget stretch another week. But something made me tap that screen. Something that would change everything. The video was shaky, clearly filmed on someone's phone at what looked like a family dinner. A dinner I hadn't been invited to. Again. The camera panned across the table, and there they were. My father, Robert. My mother, Caroline. My older brother, Marcus. Aunt Linda. Uncle Gerald behind the camera. Cousins I'd grown up with. All gathered around a table laden with food that looked expensive, wine glasses glinting in the candlelight. And then I heard it. My father's voice, loud and clear, cutting through the laughter. Sienna's been real generous with those monthly payments. Keeps everything running smooth around here. Uncle Gerald's voice from behind the camera, you raised a good daughter, Rob. She's really stepping up. My father snorted. Actually snorted. Like the idea was amusing. Generous? She owes us. We spent 18 years feeding her, clothing her, putting a roof over her head. This is just payback. Besides, what else has she got going on? No husband, no real career, living in that shoebox apartment. Might as well make herself useful as our cash cow. The table erupted in laughter. My mother smiled that tight smile of hers and added, well, at least she's finally contributing something meaningful. Lord knows she was expensive enough growing up. Marcus, my golden child brother, leaned back in his chair with a smirk. She's always been desperate for your approval, Dad. Kind of pathetic, honestly. She'd probably send more if she had it. More laughter. Aunt Linda raised her wine glass. To Sienna, the family ATM. They all toasted. To me. To my pathetic desperation. To the $2,500 I'd been sending them every single month for the past 3 years. $90,000. $90,000 transferred from my account to theirs while I ate rice and beans for dinner, while I took the bus because I couldn't afford car insurance, while I worked overtime shifts at the hospital where I was a medical records coordinator just to make sure their payment never bounced. The video ended. Another message popped up from Uncle Gerald. Oops, sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Let's just forget about it. Forget about it. I sat there in the darkness of my apartment, the glow from my phone screen the only light, and something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. And through that crack, something cold and sharp emerged. Something that had been buried under years of trying to be good enough, trying to earn love that was never going to come. My name is Sienna, I'm 30 years old, and this is the story of how I stopped being my family's cash cow and became the woman they should have been proud of all along. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand what happened next, you need to understand how I got here. You need to understand the girl I used to be and the family that shaped her into something small and desperate and hungry for scraps of affection. I grew up in Bellevue, Washington, in a house that looked perfect from the outside. My father was a commercial real estate developer. My mother was a former beauty queen who'd married well and never let anyone forget it. Marcus was 3 years older than me, athletic and charismatic, the kind of son who made parents beam with pride at every school event. And then there was me. Sienna. The accident. The surprise pregnancy that came when my mother was 41 and thought she was done with children. I wasn't planned, and I was never allowed to forget it. You know, I had to give up my figure for you, my mother would say, looking at herself in the mirror with that expression of faint disgust. I was a size 2 before you came along. My father was more subtle in his disappointment. He just didn't see me. At dinner, he'd ask Marcus about his football games, his grades, his college plans. When I tried to share something about my day, he'd nod absently and return to his phone. When I made honor roll in middle school, he glanced at my report card and said, "Good. That's what we expect." When Marcus barely passed his classes, there was a tutor hired, accommodations made, excuses given. He's just bored, my father would explain. Too smart for the curriculum. He needs to be challenged. I learned early that love in my family was conditional. It was earned through achievement, through making them look good, through never causing problems or asking for too much attention. And no matter what I achieved, it was never quite enough. I remember my 8th grade science fair. I'd spent weeks on my project about water purification systems, staying up late, researching, building models. I won first place at the school level and qualified for regionals. I was so excited. I ran home with the blue ribbon, bursting into the living room where my parents were watching TV. Mom. Dad. I won. I'm going to regionals. My mother glanced up from her magazine. That's nice, dear. Keep your voice down, your father's watching the news. Marcus had a football game that same weekend. The entire family went, cheering in the stands while he sat on the bench for most of it. When I asked if anyone could come to my science fair, my mother sighed like I'd requested something unreasonable. Sienna, honey, you know how busy we are. Besides, you already won at your school. Isn't that enough? I went to regionals alone. I placed 3rd out of 47 projects. I never mentioned it at home. The pattern continued through high school. I joined the debate team and won state championships. My parents never came to a single competition. I volunteered at a women's shelter and started a donation drive that collected over $10,000 in supplies. My mother said, "Well, at least you're doing something productive instead of wasting time with boys." Meanwhile, Marcus got a DUI his junior year, and my father hired an expensive lawyer to make it disappear. "Boys make mistakes," he said when I overheard him on the phone. "What matters is that we protect his future." I worked my ass off to get into college. Full academic scholarship to the University of Washington. When I told my parents, my father said, "Good. At least we won't have to pay for it." That was the extent of his praise. College was my escape. For 4 years, I was free from the constant feeling of being invisible, of being the daughter they tolerated rather than loved. I made friends, joined clubs, discovered that people actually liked me when I wasn't constantly trying to prove my worth. I graduated with honors in health information management, landed a job at Seattle General Hospital, and moved into my own apartment. It wasn't much. 500 square feet, a leaky faucet, neighbors who fought at 2 a.m., but it was mine. I was building my own life, separate from the family that had never quite made room for me. For 2 years, I kept my distance. Obligatory visits on holidays. Awkward phone calls where my mother talked about Marcus's engagement and his job at my father's company and how proud they were of him. I'd share something about a promotion I'd received, and she'd say, "That's nice, dear," before changing the subject. It hurt, but I was learning to build my life around the hurt, to fill the empty spaces with friendships and work and small joys that belonged only to me. And then my father called. It was unusual. He never called unless it was my birthday or he needed something. His voice on the line was gruff, slightly uncomfortable. "Sienna, I need to discuss something with you. A financial matter." My heart lurched. Was something wrong? Was someone sick? "What is it, Dad?" He explained that the company was going through a rough patch. Some deals had fallen through. They'd overextended on a development project that hadn't sold as expected. They were facing some temporary cash flow issues, and the mortgage on their house, the beautiful 5-bedroom house I'd grown up in, was becoming difficult to manage. "I can't ask Marcus," he said. "He's got the wedding coming up, and he and Veronica are trying to buy their first house. Their money's all tied up. But he could ask me. The daughter he'd barely noticed for 30 years. The one who'd never cost them a cent beyond legal obligation. How much do you need?" I asked, hating the hope that fluttered in my chest. He was asking me for help. He needed me. $2,500 a month would cover it. Just temporarily, until we get back on our feet. 6 months, maybe a year at most. $2,500 was more than half my monthly take-home pay. It would mean cutting back on everything, living even more frugally than I already was. But it was my father. And he was asking me for help. Trusting me. Okay, I said. I can do that. There was a pause. Really? You can manage that? Yes. I'll send the first payment this week. Well. Thank you, Sienna. We appreciate it. I'll pay you back, of course. Once things stabilize. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of sending $2,500 on the first of every month without fail. 3 years of stretching every dollar, of saying no to dinners with friends, of wearing the same clothes season after season, of watching my savings account hover just above zero. In those 3 years, my father had thanked me exactly 4 times. Brief texts, got it. Thanks. My mother never acknowledged the payments at all. When I'd visit for Christmas or Thanksgiving, they'd never mention it, never ask how I was managing, never seem to notice that I came empty-handed while Marcus and Veronica brought expensive wine and gourmet food. I told myself it didn't matter. I was helping. I was being a good daughter. Maybe this was finally my chance to be seen, to matter, to be worth something in their eyes. And now I knew the truth. I wasn't a good daughter. I was a cash cow. A convenient source of money from someone too desperate for love to say no. And they were laughing about it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, replaying that video over and over until I'd memorized every word, every laugh, every contemptuous expression. By dawn, I'd watched it 32 times. Part of me wanted to call them immediately, to scream and rage and demand an explanation. But another part of me, the part that had learned to be strategic from years of being overlooked, told me to wait. To think. To plan. I called in sick to work, which I never did. My supervisor, Sandra, was immediately concerned. Are you okay? You sound terrible. Family emergency, I said, which wasn't quite a lie. I need a few days. Take what you need. Your health comes first. If only my family felt the same way. I spent that day gathering evidence. I pulled up every bank statement from the past 3 years, highlighting every transfer. I downloaded every confirmation email, every text exchange about the payments. I created a spreadsheet documenting it all. Dates, amounts, their responses. Or lack thereof. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called my father's mortgage company. Hello, I'm calling about the account for Robert and Caroline Patterson, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. I'm their daughter, Sienna. I've been making payments on their behalf, and I need to verify the account status. The representative was helpful. Too helpful. She pulled up the account and confirmed what I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. The account is current. Actually, it's more than current. They've been paying double the minimum for the past year. At this rate, they'll have the house paid off in 3 years instead of the original 15. Double the minimum. While I was sending them $2,500 every month, they were using that money to accelerate their mortgage payoff. Not just keeping their heads above water. Building wealth. Building their future. On my dime. Can you tell me, I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, when the last payment I made was credited? Certainly. Let me see, looks like the most recent payment from account ending in 4392 was applied yesterday. That account has been making the monthly contribution consistently since, this goes back 36 months. Very reliable. Thank you, I managed. That's all I needed to know. I hung up and stared at my laptop screen. The number swam before my eyes. $90,000. I'd given them $90,000, and they'd used it not to survive, but to thrive. To build equity. To secure their future while I scraped by on rice and generic brand groceries. The next payment was due in 9 days. I opened a new document and began to type. An email. Carefully worded, factual, devastating. I'm writing to share some information about the financial support I've been providing to my parents for the past 3 years. I thought it was important for our extended family to understand the full situation, particularly in light of recent events. I attached the bank statements, the spreadsheet, the mortgage information, and the video. That damning video where they called me their cash cow and laughed about my desperation. I created a recipient list. Uncle Gerald. Aunt Linda. My cousins. Family friends. People from my father's business network. My mother's book club. Marcus and Veronica. Anyone who might have heard their version of events. Anyone who might have sat at those dinners and laughed along. But I didn't send it. Not yet. I wanted to wait until they realized the money wasn't coming. Until they started to panic. Until they called, demanding to know where their payment was. Then I'd hit send, and watch their perfect world crumble. The days that followed were some of the strangest of my life. I went to work, coordinated medical records, attended meetings, smiled at colleagues. On the surface, everything was normal. Inside, I was building toward something I couldn't name. Something that felt like justice but tasted like freedom. My father called twice. I didn't answer. My mother sent a text, "Sienna, your father tried to reach you. Please call back." I didn't respond. Marcus sent several messages, each more irritated than the last. "Dad says you're ignoring him. What's your problem? You're being childish. It was just a family dinner. Seriously, call Dad back. The payment's due soon and he wants to make sure everything's okay." Ah. There it was. They were worried about their cash cow. My best friend, Maya, called on Thursday evening. We'd met at UW and had stayed close even though she'd moved to Portland for work. She was one of the few people who knew the full, ugly truth about my family dynamics. "Hey, stranger. You've been quiet. Everything okay?" I told her about the video. I played it for her over the phone, and the silence that followed was loaded with fury. "Sienna. Oh my God. Sienna, I'm so sorry. That's unforgivable." "I know. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to stop paying. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what they've been doing." Maya was quiet for a moment. "They're going to lose it. Your dad, your brother, all of them." "Good. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout? Because this is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly, Maya. I'm just making sure everyone else can see it." "Okay. I'm behind you 100%. What do you need? Just be there when it all explodes. I'm going to need someone to talk to who doesn't think I'm a walking ATM. Always." After we hung up, I finalized the email. I read it over one more time, checking for any hint of hysteria or emotion. I wanted it cold, factual, undeniable. "I won't be making any future payments. I'm sure you understand." Perfect. Sunday evening, 5 days before the payment was due, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. "Sienna, it's Mom. We haven't heard from you all week, and we're getting concerned. Call us back, please. It's important." Important. The payment was important. I wasn't important when they were laughing about me at their dinner party, but now that their money was in question, suddenly they were concerned. Monday came. 4 days until the payment was due. My father left a voicemail. "Sienna, this is getting ridiculous. I know Gerald sent you that video, and I know you're upset, but you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just family banter. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults." Family banter. That's what he was calling it. Not cruelty. Not betrayal. Just banter. Tuesday. 3 days. Marcus called from an unknown number, probably figuring I wouldn't answer if I saw his name. Sienna, what the hell? Mom and Dad are freaking out. Whatever your issue is, you need to get over it. We're family. You don't just ghost your family because your feelings got hurt. Your feelings got hurt. As if this was about being oversensitive. As if I was being dramatic about being called a cash cow while unknowingly funding their wealth-building strategy. Wednesday. 2 days. My mother sent a long text. Sienna, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Your father and I have always supported you, and this is how you repay us? By ignoring our calls and acting like a spoiled child? We raised you better than this. Call us immediately. I almost laughed. They'd supported me? When? When they forgot my science fair? When they skipped my college graduation because Marcus had a golf tournament? When they never once visited my apartment because it was in a bad neighborhood? Thursday evening, 1 day before the payment was due, my father called again. This time, I answered. About damn time, he said, his voice gruff with irritation. What's this all about, Sienna? You can't just ignore your family for a week. Actually, I can. Don't be smart. Gerald told me he sent you that video. Look, I'm sorry if what I said upset you, but you have to understand, it was just talk. You know how these family dinners are. People exaggerate, they joke around. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me. He sighed, the sound heavy with impatience. You're being too sensitive. This is exactly why we didn't, never mind. The point is, we're family. We move past these things. Now, I wanted to make sure the payment's still going through tomorrow. There's been some confusion at the bank. There it was. The real reason for the call. Actually, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about that. What about it? I'm not sending the payment. Silence. Long and heavy. What? I'm not sending the payment this month. Or any month after this. I'm done. Done? What do you mean, done? We had an agreement. We had an agreement where I sent you money thinking you were in financial trouble, and you used it to pay down your mortgage while calling me a cash cow. That agreement is over. His voice went cold. Sienna, don't be stupid. You're upset, I get it, but you're not thinking clearly. That payment needs to go through tomorrow. Then you'll have to make it yourself. We counted on that money. We have financial commitments based on that income. That's not my problem anymore. Not your problem? After everything we've done for you? We raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. You owe us. And there it was. The truth beneath all the pretense. I didn't matter to them as a daughter. I mattered as a debt to be collected. I don't owe you anything, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You didn't raise me out of love. You raised me because it was legally required. And you know what? I'm finally done trying to earn something you were never going to give me. You're being selfish and ungrateful. Your mother is going to be devastated. Tell Mom I said hi, I replied and hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the rush of finally standing up to the man who'd made me feel small my entire life. The phone rang immediately. I turned off the ringer and set it face down. Then I opened my laptop, pulled up the draft email, and hovered my cursor over the send button. Tomorrow morning, when they woke up and realized the payment wasn't coming, they'd panic. They'd call, text, email, demanding an explanation. And when they were at their most desperate, when they were trying to figure out how to cover the shortfall, when they were scrambling to explain to the mortgage company why the payment was late. That's when everyone would learn the truth. I clicked send. The emails went out at 6 a.m. on Friday morning, timed perfectly for when people would be checking their phones over coffee, when they'd have time to read everything, when the information would have maximum impact. I didn't sleep Thursday night either. I lay in bed imagining the reactions. Uncle Gerald opening his email and seeing the video he'd accidentally sent me now broadcast to 47 people. Aunt Linda reading through the payment receipts, adding up the numbers in her head. My father's business partners watching him call his daughter a cash cow. Marcus and Veronica seeing proof that I'd been bankrolling his parents while they saved for their dream home. At 6:15 a.m., my phone started buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. Even with the ringer off, I could feel it vibrating on my nightstand, notification after notification rolling in. I made myself breakfast. Scrambled eggs with cheese, toast with real butter, coffee from the good beans I'd been saving. If this was going to be the day my family imploded, I was going to face it properly fed. At 7 a.m., I finally picked up my phone. 63 missed calls. 91 text messages. 28 voicemails. I started with the texts, scrolling through them in order of receipt. Uncle Gerald, Sienna, I am so sorry. I had no idea Rob felt that way. Please call me. Aunt Linda, this is humiliating for the entire family. How could you air private business like this? Marcus, what the fuck, Sienna? You're trying to destroy Mom and Dad? Over a stupid joke? My father, multiple messages, each angrier than the last. How dare you? After everything we've done. You vindictive little, you're dead to me. My mother, I don't even know who you are anymore. The daughter I raised would never be this cruel. But then there were others. Messages I hadn't expected. My cousin Jennifer, Sienna, I had no idea you were paying their mortgage. What your dad said about you in that video made me sick. I'm so sorry. My father's business partner, David, Rob told us his business was struggling. He borrowed money from 3 of us. Was he using your payments to cover his lifestyle while claiming poverty? Someone from my mother's book club, Caroline, has been fundraising for families in crisis while you were supporting her? I donated $500 to her charity auction last month. Where did that money go? That last message made my stomach drop. My mother had been fundraising? While I was sending them $2,500 a month? I opened the voicemails. My father's voice filled my quiet apartment, raw with rage. You think you can humiliate me like this? Destroy my reputation? You're nothing, Sienna. You've always been nothing. This just proves how spiteful and small you really are. I deleted it and moved to the next. Marcus, you're jealous. You've always been jealous that Dad and I are close and you're on the outside. This is just you trying to ruin everything because you're bitter and alone. Pathetic. But then Uncle Gerald's voice, softer, almost broken. Sienna, honey, I owe you an apology. A real one. I sat at that table and laughed, and I shouldn't have. What Rob said was cruel, and I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry. I'm here if you need me. I sat with that for a moment. One person. Out of my entire extended family, one person was willing to admit wrongdoing and apologize. It was something. My phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Is this Sienna Patterson? Yes. Who's this? My name is Margaret Chin. I'm the director of the Community Aid Foundation that your mother has been volunteering with. I'm calling because we've received some concerning information. My stomach sank. What kind of information? For the past 18 months, your mother has been organizing fundraisers for families in financial crisis. She's hosted charity dinners, silent auctions, donation drives. She's told us repeatedly that she understands these struggles personally because her family has faced severe financial hardship. Based on the documentation you sent this morning, it appears those claims were false. 18 months. While I'd been sending them $2,500 every month, my mother had been positioning herself as someone who understood poverty, accepting donations meant for actual families in need. How much did she raise? I asked quietly. Over the past 18 months? approximately $75,000. Those funds were meant to help families facing foreclosure, job loss, medical bankruptcy. Your mother presented herself as someone who'd walked that path and survived. I felt sick. It wasn't enough that they'd used me. They'd also scammed an entire charity. What happens now? We're launching a formal investigation. If we find that your mother misrepresented her circumstances to solicit donations, there will be legal consequences. I thought you should know. And Ms. Patterson? Thank you for bringing this to light. Organizations like ours run on trust. What your mother did. It damages all of us. After she hung up, I sat in stunned silence. My mother, the former beauty queen who'd always been so concerned with appearances, had been running a charity scam. Taking money from people who genuinely wanted to help struggling families, all while living in a 5-bedroom house with a nearly paid-off mortgage. My phone rang again. Maya. Holy shit, she said when I answered. Holy shit, Sienna. I've been watching this explode online all morning. Your dad's Facebook is a war zone. I haven't looked. Don't. It's brutal. But Sienna, people are seeing the truth. Real people, not just your shitty family. People are calling him out, posting their own stories about him borrowing money and never paying it back, about your mom's fundraising. This is bigger than you thought. My mom was running a charity scam, Maya. For 18 months. Jesus. Okay, that's bad. That's really bad. The charity director just called me. They're investigating. Good. She should be investigated. They both should. Sienna, I know this feels overwhelming, but you did the right thing. You exposed the truth. Everything that happens now, that's on them, not you. She was right. But it didn't make it easier to watch. By midday, the situation had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. My father's Facebook post, a long rant about ungrateful children and betrayal, had been shared over 200 times. But screenshots of the receipts I'd sent were circulating too, along with the video. People were arguing in comment sections, sharing their own stories, picking apart every detail. Someone had created a hashtag #CashCowSienna. At first, I thought it was mocking me, but when I clicked through, I found hundreds of posts from people sharing their own experiences with financial abuse from family members. Stories of parents who'd guilt-tripped their children into supporting them, of siblings who'd borrowed money and never paid it back, of extended family who'd treated loved ones like ATMs. #CashCowSienna gave me the courage to stop sending money to my dad, who called me selfish for not giving more. Been supporting my parents for 8 years. #CashCowSienna made me realize I'm not helping, I'm enabling. Cut off my brother who borrowed $50,000 and never paid it back. Family said I was cruel. #CashCowSienna showed me I was right. I was reading through these posts, tears streaming down my face, when my apartment buzzer rang. I checked the video intercom and saw Marcus standing at the building entrance, his face red with anger. I didn't buzz him up. Sienna. His voice crackled through the speaker. Sienna, I know you're up there. We need to talk. You can't hide forever. Go away, Marcus. Not until we talk. Face to face. You owe us that much. I don't owe you anything. Leave, or I'm calling the police. The police? Really? You're going to call the cops on your own brother? Jesus, Sienna, when did you become so cold? Around the time you called me pathetic for wanting Dad's approval. Now leave. I ended the call and immediately phoned building security. They assured me they'd ask Marcus to leave and would keep an eye out for any further incidents. 10 minutes later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Patterson? This is Jonathan Reeves. I'm an attorney. Your father has retained me to represent him in a potential lawsuit against you for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. My heart stopped. Lawsuit? Yes. Your father believes that the materials you distributed, particularly the video and the financial records, constitute defamation of character and have caused significant damage to his reputation and emotional well-being. He's prepared to pursue legal action unless you issue a public retraction and apology within 48 hours. I almost laughed. Almost. Mr. Reeves, everything I sent was factual. I have documentation for every payment. The video came from my uncle. Those were my father's own words. The truth of the statements is irrelevant if the intent was to cause harm. By distributing these materials to such a wide audience, you've engaged in what could be considered harassment. My father called me a cash cow while I was supporting him financially. He's facing exposure for charity fraud. And he wants to sue me for telling the truth? Your father is willing to be reasonable, Ms. Patterson. A simple apology and retraction, and we can all move forward. Tell my father that if he wants to sue me, he should go ahead. I'll see him in court. And when he subpoenas records, everyone will learn about the charity fraud too. Every cent my mother raised will be examined. So please, encourage him to sue me. I'd love to watch that play out. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. They were actually threatening to sue me for exposing their behavior. I immediately called the attorney Maya had recommended, a woman named Rachel Winters who specialized in family law and had a reputation for taking no prisoners. Ms. Patterson, she said when I explained the situation. Your father doesn't have a case. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. However, I recommend we prepare for the possibility that he'll file anyway, just to intimidate you. People who've done wrong often use legal threats to silence their victims. What should I do? Document everything. Every threat, every call, every message. If he does file, we'll countersue for frivolous litigation and legal fees. We'll also subpoena records of the charity your mother worked with. By the time we're done, he'll wish he'd left this alone. After we hung up, I felt both terrified and empowered. This was really happening. My family was going to war with me, and I was going to fight back. The weekend was a blur of messages, calls, and online chaos. My father's lawsuit threat had leaked somehow, probably through his attorney's office, and the internet had opinions. Imagine being so entitled that you sue your own daughter for exposing your abuse. This man stole $90,000 from his daughter and now wants to sue her? The audacity. #CashCow. Sienna's dad really thought he could intimidate her into silence. Wrong move, buddy. Maya drove up from Portland on Saturday to check on me in person. We sat in my tiny apartment, eating takeout Thai food that I'd actually allowed myself to order for the first time in months, and she filled me in on what she'd been seeing online. Your story is everywhere, Sienna. BuzzFeed wrote an article. Some YouTubers are making commentary videos. There's a TikTok trend where people are sharing their own #CashCow stories. You've accidentally started a movement. I didn't mean to start anything. I just wanted them to know the truth. Sometimes the truth is revolutionary. Especially when it's a truth that a lot of people are living but nobody's talking about. On Monday morning, I returned to work for the first time since the explosion. I was nervous about what people might have seen or heard, but my coworkers were nothing but supportive. Sandra, my supervisor, pulled me aside within an hour of my arrival. Sienna, I saw what happened. With your family. Are you okay? I'm managing. I want you to know that if you need time off, or if you need to adjust your hours, or if there's anything we can do to support you, just ask. You're one of our best coordinators, and we want to make sure you're taken care of. Hearing those words, simple and sincere, made me tear up. Someone valued me. Someone saw me as more than a source of money or obligation. Thank you, I managed. That means more than you know. That week, 2 more developments changed everything. First, the Community Aid Foundation completed their preliminary investigation and filed a formal complaint against my mother with the State Attorney General's office. The news ran a story about it, local reporter detailing how a prominent volunteer had allegedly solicited donations under false pretenses. They didn't name my mother directly, but everyone knew. Second, 3 of my father's business partners sued him for fraud. Apparently, he'd borrowed money from them around the same time he'd told me the business was struggling, using the same story about cash flow problems and temporary hardship. One partner had lent him $40,000. Another had invested $60,000 in a development project that didn't exist. My father hadn't been struggling. He'd been running cons on multiple fronts, and I'd accidentally exposed all of them. 2 weeks after I sent those emails, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize with a 206 area code. Seattle. I answered cautiously. Is this Sienna Patterson? Yes. Who's calling? My name is Dr. Elizabeth Hartman. I'm the Dean of Student Affairs at the University of Washington. I'm calling because we've recently learned about your situation, and we'd like to speak with you about something. My heart raced. Had my old university somehow gotten pulled into this? What about? We've been made aware of your extraordinary generosity in supporting your family despite significant personal financial hardship. We've also learned that you graduated with honors from our Health Information Management program and have been working in the field with distinction. Ms. Patterson, we have a proposition for you. Would you be willing to meet with me? 2 days later, I sat in Dean Hartman's office on the UW campus, surrounded by diplomas and awards and photos of students. She was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that put me at ease. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing for me to sit. I'll get right to the point. The university has a scholarship fund for graduate students in healthcare administration. It's a competitive program, fully funded, that leads to a master's in health administration. Based on your academic record and professional experience, you'd be an ideal candidate. I stared at her. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? Because we'd like to offer you a spot in the program if you're interested. Full tuition, plus a living stipend of $2,000 per month. The program is 2 years, and upon completion, you'd be qualified for director-level positions in healthcare administration. My brain struggled to process this. A full scholarship? With a stipend? Yes. We've had this fund for years, but we've struggled to find candidates who truly embody the values we're looking for: resilience, dedication, the ability to overcome hardship while maintaining integrity. Your story, Ms. Patterson, demonstrates all of those qualities. My story, I repeated numbly. You mean the story where my family called me a cash cow and I exposed them online? She smiled gently. I mean the story where a young woman worked her way through college with no family support, graduated with honors, built a career, and still found it in her heart to help family members who didn't deserve it. I mean the story of someone who finally said enough and stood up for herself. That takes courage, Ms. Patterson. That's the kind of student we want in our program. I felt tears welling up. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. The next cohort starts in September. That gives you 6 months to decide. In the meantime, here's the application information. I've already written you a letter of recommendation based on your undergraduate record. I left her office in a daze, clutching the folder she'd given me. A master's degree. Fully funded. A stipend that would actually allow me to live comfortably while studying. For the first time in 3 years, I wouldn't have to choose between paying my rent and buying groceries. I wouldn't have to take extra shifts to make ends meet. I could focus on building my future instead of funding someone else's. I called Maya from my car, still parked in the campus lot. They offered me a full scholarship to graduate school, I said when she answered. With a stipend. Maya, I'm going to get my master's degree. Her shriek of joy was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Sienna. Oh my God. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. This wouldn't have happened if I hadn't stopped paying them. If I'd kept being their cash cow, I'd still be broke and exhausted and invisible. Exactly. You stopped letting them drain you, and now you get to build something for yourself. This is what you deserve, Sienna. Finally. The legal threats from my father never materialized into an actual lawsuit. According to Rachel, my attorney, his lawyer had advised him that pursuing the case would only result in more public exposure of the charity fraud and business partner scams. Better to cut his losses and hope the story died down. But the story didn't die down. At least, not for me. The Community Aid Foundation filed criminal charges against my mother. She pled guilty to a reduced charge of charitable fraud and was sentenced to 2 years of probation and full restitution of the $75,000 she'd raised, plus penalties. She'd be paying that back for the rest of her life. My father's business partners won their fraud case against him. Between the 3 settlements and legal fees, he was forced to sell the house I'd grown up in, the house my payments had been helping to pay off. They moved to a small condo in Tacoma, about 45 minutes south of their old life. Marcus and Veronica quietly distanced themselves from my parents. I heard through Uncle Gerald that Marcus had finally done the math and realized how much of his parents' generosity toward him had actually been my money. He never apologized, but he also stopped calling me names online. As for me, I accepted the scholarship offer. I gave notice at my job, with Sandra's enthusiastic support and a promise that there would be a position waiting for me when I graduated. I moved to a better apartment, nothing fancy, but with actual heat that worked and neighbors who didn't scream at 2 a.m. I started the graduate program in September, and for the first time in my adult life, I had the space and resources to focus on my own future. The hashtag #CashCowSienna continued to trend sporadically. People would share their own stories of financial abuse and tag me, thanking me for giving them the courage to set boundaries with their own families. Some people criticized me, said I'd gone too far, that family should forgive family no matter what. I learned to ignore those voices. About 6 months into my graduate program, I received a letter. Handwritten. From my mother. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Dear Sienna, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. I've spent the past months thinking about everything that happened, everything we did to you, and I'm ashamed. Your father and I convinced ourselves that we deserved your support, that you owed us something for raising you. We told ourselves we were good parents because we provided the basics, because we didn't hit you or neglect you in obvious ways. But we did neglect you. We neglected your emotional needs, your need to be seen and valued, your need for real love instead of conditional approval. I can't undo what we did. I can't give you back the money or the years of feeling invisible. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I'm facing consequences, but because I finally understand how much we hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a response. I just wanted you to know that you deserved better than us. You always did. Mom, I read the letter 3 times. It was something. Not enough, maybe not even sincere, but something. I didn't respond. Some wounds don't heal just because someone finally acknowledges them. But I kept the letter, tucked away in a drawer, a reminder of the moment when one person in my family finally saw me. I graduated with my master's degree in May, 2 years after sending that email that changed everything. Dean Hartman handed me my diploma personally, and she whispered, "Proud of you," as she shook my hand. Maya was there, cheering loudly enough to embarrass me. Uncle Gerald came too, which surprised me. He'd been slowly rebuilding our relationship, respecting my boundaries, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. After the ceremony, he pulled me aside. "Your mother wanted me to give you something," he said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a check for $90,000. The exact amount I'd paid them over 3 years. A note in my mother's handwriting read, "I know this doesn't fix anything, but it's yours. It was always yours." I stared at the check for a long moment. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to reject anything they tried to give me now. But another part, the practical part that had learned to survive on scraps, knew that this money could change my life. Again. "Thank you," I told Uncle Gerald. "For bringing this." She's different now, he said carefully. Your mother. The legal troubles, the public shame, losing the house, it changed her. Maybe too late, but she's different. Your father, though, he's still angry. Still blaming you. I don't think he'll ever see his part in this. That's okay, I said, and I meant it. I don't need him to see it anymore. I see it. That's enough. I deposited the check and used it to pay off my student loans from undergrad, put a down payment on a small condo, and invested the rest. Blood money, maybe, but it was mine now, given freely instead of extracted through guilt. I accepted a director position at a prominent Seattle hospital, managing their health information systems. The salary was more than I'd ever imagined making. The work was challenging and fulfilling. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. 3 years after the video that changed everything, I was invited back to UW to speak at a panel on financial independence and family boundaries. The auditorium was packed with students, most of them young women, all of them looking for guidance on navigating complicated family dynamics. I stood at the podium, looking out at their faces, and I saw myself at their age, desperate to please, afraid to disappoint, willing to sacrifice everything for scraps of approval. My name is Sienna, I began. And for 3 years, my family called me their cash cow behind my back while I bankrupted myself trying to earn their love. I told them the story. Not to shame my family anymore, but to help these students understand what I'd learned the hard way. Here's what I want you to know, I said, wrapping up. Your worth is not measured by your usefulness to other people. You don't owe your parents a debt for raising you, that was their legal and moral obligation. And if the people who are supposed to love you can only see you as a source of resources, whether that's money or labor or emotional support, then they don't actually love you. They love what you provide. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you cruel. And walking away from people who hurt you, even if they're family, doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who values herself enough to demand respect. I lost my family when I stopped letting them use me. But I gained myself. And that trade, as painful as it was, saved my life. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of students came up to me, sharing their own stories, asking for advice, thanking me for giving them permission to set boundaries they'd been afraid to set. One young woman, barely 20, with tears streaming down her face, said, "My mom keeps asking me to send money home, and I can barely afford groceries, but I feel so guilty saying no." I took her hands in mine. You're not responsible for your mother's financial choices. You're responsible for building your own life. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling their dysfunction. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you. I needed to hear that. As I left the campus that evening, the sun setting over the Seattle skyline, I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who measured her worth in bank transfers and unanswered calls. The one who would have done anything, given anything, to hear her father say he was proud of her. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her value, who'd built a life on her own terms, who'd learned that real love doesn't come with conditions or payment plans. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved that video, the one that had started everything. I watched it one more time, my father's words echoing through the years, "Might as well make herself useful as our cash cow." Then I deleted it. I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need proof of their cruelty to justify my choices. I didn't need to hold on to the hurt to remember why I'd walked away. I knew who I was now. Not their cash cow. Not their disappointment. Not their burden. Just Sienna. Finally free. 5 years after I sent that email, I was promoted to Chief Information Officer at Seattle General Hospital, overseeing all health information systems for one of the largest hospital networks in the Pacific Northwest. I was 35 years old, financially stable, living in a beautiful condo with a view of the water, and finally at peace. I'd built a chosen family, Maya, who'd stood by me through everything. Uncle Gerald, who'd worked hard to make amends. Colleagues who valued me. Friends who saw me. A therapist who helped me untangle decades of dysfunction and build healthier patterns. I dated occasionally, though I was cautious about letting people close. The wounds from my family had left scars, and I was learning to navigate intimacy without the desperate need for approval that had driven so much of my earlier life. My father never spoke to me again. According to Uncle Gerald, he'd moved to Arizona, still bitter, still blaming me for his downfall, still unable to see his own culpability. I'd made my peace with never receiving an apology from him. Some people are incapable of accountability. My mother and I exchanged holiday cards and occasional emails. Surface-level communication, nothing deep, but civil. She'd never be the mother I'd needed when I was young, but she'd become someone who could at least acknowledge the harm she'd caused. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. More like détente. Marcus and I were strangers. We had no relationship at all. No animosity, but no connection either. He'd built his life, I'd built mine. Sometimes families fracture beyond repair, and that's okay. The hashtag #CashCowSienna hashtag still surfaced occasionally, usually when someone shared their own story of financial abuse or family manipulation. Sometimes people tagged me, thanking me for starting a conversation that needed to happen. I'd responded less over the years, but I was grateful that my pain had somehow helped others find their strength. One evening, as I sat in my condo overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the ferries glide across the water, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Sienna Patterson?" "Yes." "Who's calling?" "My name is Jennifer Morrison. I'm a producer for a podcast called Surviving Family. We tell stories of people who've overcome family dysfunction and abuse. We'd love to have you on as a guest, if you're interested." I thought about it. Did I want to revisit that pain publicly? Did I want to keep being known as the cash cow girl? But then I thought about that young woman at UW, crying because she felt guilty for not sending money home. I thought about all the people who'd messaged me over the years, saying my story gave them courage. "Yes," I said. "I'll do it." The podcast episode aired 2 months later. I told the whole story, from the video to the payments to the exposure to the aftermath. I talked about the guilt, the grief, the gradual acceptance that some relationships are too toxic to salvage. The episode went viral. Millions of downloads. Articles written about it. More interviews requested. And then something unexpected happened. The University of Washington announced that they were naming a new scholarship in my honor, the Sienna Patterson Resilience Scholarship, for students who'd overcome family hardship to pursue higher education. Fully funded, with a living stipend, just like the scholarship that had changed my life. At the naming ceremony, Dean Hartman, now retired but present as a guest of honor, said, "Sienna Patterson represents everything we hope our students will become: resilient, courageous, committed to truth and justice, even when it costs them. This scholarship will help future students build the lives they deserve, just as Sienna built hers." I stood at the podium, looking out at the audience filled with donors, students, faculty, and media, and I felt something I'd never felt before when connected to my family name. Pride. Not the desperate, grasping need for someone else to be proud of me. But genuine pride in myself. In what I'd survived. In what I'd built. In the woman I'd become when I finally stopped trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady and strong. "To everyone who's struggled to set boundaries with family. To everyone who's been called selfish for choosing themselves. To everyone who's ever been someone's cash cow, you deserve better. You are worth more. And it's never too late to choose yourself." The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 22, with nervous eyes and hands clutched tightly together. "Ms. Patterson? I'm Sarah. I'm a junior here, and I just wanted to say thank you. I've been sending my parents $1,000 a month since I started college, working 2 jobs to afford it, and they keep asking for more. Your story made me realize I don't have to. I stopped the payments last month. They're furious, but I'm finally able to focus on school. So thank you for being brave first. I hugged her, this stranger who was so much like the girl I used to be. You're brave too, I told her. Never forget that. As I drove home that evening, the Seattle skyline glittering in my rearview mirror, I thought about how far I'd come. From the girl eating 3-day-old pasta in a cramped apartment, watching a video of her family mock her while she bankrupted herself for them, to the woman I was now, successful, stable, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. It hadn't been easy. The journey from cash cow to chief information officer had been brutal at times. There were nights I'd cried myself to sleep. Days I'd questioned whether I'd made the right choice. Moments when the loneliness of losing my family felt unbearable. But on the other side of that pain was freedom. Real freedom. The freedom to build a life that belonged to me, to choose who got access to my time and energy and resources, to understand that my worth wasn't conditional on someone else's approval. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, saw the scholarship announcement. So proud of you. Drinks this weekend to celebrate? I smiled and typed back, absolutely. My treat. For the first time in my adult life, I could afford to treat my best friend to drinks without calculating how it would affect my rent payment. That simple fact, that easy generosity with someone who actually deserved it, felt like victory. I pulled into my parking garage, rode the elevator up to my floor, and walked into my condo. My home. My sanctuary. My space that I'd earned through hard work and resilience, and finally valuing myself enough to walk away from people who didn't. On my refrigerator was a card from the last therapy session I'd had. My therapist had written a quote for me: sometimes the most important revolution is the one that happens inside you. I'd revolutionized myself. I'd gone from a woman who measured her worth in bank transfers to a woman who knew, bone deep, that she was valuable simply because she existed. Not because of what she provided or produced or sacrificed. Just because she was. That night, I pulled out my journal and wrote, "Dear younger me," the one who's watching that video right now with tears streaming down her face. The one who's trying to figure out how she'll pay next month's rent after sending another payment to parents who don't appreciate it. The one who's so desperate for love that she'll bankrupt herself trying to earn it. I see you. I was you. And I want you to know, it gets better. Not immediately. Not easily. But it does get better. You're going to walk away from them. You're going to expose the truth. You're going to face their anger and their threats and their attempts to shame you back into submission. And you're going to survive it. More than survive. You're going to thrive. You're going to build a life that's wholly yours. You're going to help people. You're going to matter, not because you're useful, but because you're you. The family that mocked you will face consequences. The truth will come out. Justice will be served, imperfect and incomplete, but real. And you, sweet girl who's trying so hard to be enough, you're going to discover that you were always enough. They were just incapable of seeing it. So be brave. Take that leap. Stop the payments. Send that email. Stand up for yourself. It's going to hurt. But on the other side of that hurt is freedom. And you deserve to be free. Love, your future self, who finally learned to love herself. I closed the journal and looked out at the Seattle night, the city lights twinkling like promises of possibility. I was Sienna Patterson. Not their cash cow. Not their disappointment. Not their burden. Just Sienna. Chief Information Officer. Scholarship namesake. Survivor. Thriver. Free. And that freedom, hard-won and blood-bought, was worth every painful step of the journey.